Hello, and welcome back to the European Edge. My name is Andrii Suslenko, and I'm your host. We are pleased and happy that you are here with us for our second episode, and we hope that you will also take a moment to subscribe to our host media website, which is thegays.media. And also, I'd like you to go to our YouTube channel and subscribe there as well. Also, do some likes and dislikes, and also do some comments. We really need that, and we like that. And also, you can go to my Instagram page, but that's just for you. All right, coming up on this episode, we'll be finding out why Chinese people have started waterboarding themselves. We will take a hard look at our word of the week, and we will ask why Vladimir Putin cannot even get himself arrested in South Africa. As always, on the show, we want to give you a different perspective from the new Europe. And just to remind you, the new Europe stretches from the east of Berlin to Tbilisi. This week, we'll be traveling to distant and imaginary to many people continent of Africa. It's really odd that a continent with 1.2 billion people so rarely gets any focus in the news. So we want to change that, and we want to take a deeper look on how hidden agendas are shaping the future of Africa every single day, and you just miss it. All that, plus an interview with an expert in dark arts of intelligence. Now, let's get on with the show. And we start in Odessa, Ukraine, where some terrible stuff happened. Chaos and destruction have blossomed following Russia's recent withdrawal from the Black Sea Grain Initiative, which had allowed Ukraine to ship grain to the world as the war continued. While paralyzing global food supplies is clearly designed to give Russia some leverage in negotiations, the real-world effects are measured in human lives and mindless violence. In just 1 week, Russian attacks on port facilities and storage depots in Odessa and elsewhere have resulted in multiple deaths and the destruction of over 60,000 tons of grain, which, to put it in perspective, is enough to feed 4 million people for 1 month, or to make over 102 million loaves of bread, which is a lot, and also which probably would have been very welcome in Africa, where these nations especially rely on Ukrainian grain for up to, just imagine, 70% of their food security. So there will be too little grain for them, while there continues to be too many bombs in Odessa. So many, in fact, that these attacks also badly damaged the city's Transfiguration Cathedral, which is a 19th century landmark that had already been destroyed by, you guessed it, Soviets in 1936. The cathedral was under UNESCO protection, which is a lovely idea, but it is not under is the protection of a strong missile defense system, which Odessa and Ukraine need. So for now, this Russian culture of bombing and terror continues to destroy the real culture of Ukraine. The response from the Russian media has been sadly predictable, with human visuals Vladimir Solovyov and Olga Skabeva openly rejoicing the loss of human life and on the state Russian TV. Skabeva even went so far to say, "We are, of course, not aggressors, but we are pleased to see how we are striking retaliation strikes." Really? Retaliation strike? Against what? Wheat, corn, grain? To claim that Russia is not the aggressor in the situation, it just reminds me there are 3 types of people that I hate in this world. People who cannot count and hypocrites. Someone, maybe Ukraine, maybe not, responded swiftly to these attacks with the weapons that they had, launching drone attack on central Moscow. That blew the roofs of buildings surrounding the Ministry of Defense of Russia. But compared to what the Russian military is able to rain down on Odessa, one has to ask just for how long Ukrainians have to wait until they're given the ability to deploy long-range missile systems. I'll have that question there for Joe Biden, the UN, and NATO to answer. And we'll only add that while you're quietly debating, Ukrainians are loudly asking for the opportunity to have a fair fight. For our next piece, we turn our attention to sexy, sunny, semi-socialist Spain. España, te quiero mucho. After a major election turnout in Spain, the winner is no one. Yeah, that's right. Or left. Or well, at the moment, no party has enough votes to actually govern. Many had predicted a handy victory over the current Socialist Party by Alberto Núñez Feijóo and the center-right Popular Party.
So it's very shrewd to be very, very popular, like me.
And in a super wicked plan, the Popular Party would have formed a coalition government with the extreme right Vox Party, which advocates shutting down mosques and repealing laws that protect LGBTQ members, abortion rights, and the climate. But so far, the Popular Party and Vox don't have enough votes to form a majority. And I want to say to that, gracias a Dios no lo tienen, which translates as, thank God they don't have it. Because I do not like them in a box. I do not like them in my socks. I do not like their right-wing talks. I do not like the party box. For the moment, this turn of events saved the world from Spain's first right-wing government since Francisco Franco's regime in the 1970s. In a statement, the ghost of Francisco Franco said, "You lazy bastardos, wake up from your siestas. Call out the military police. Blame the Freemasons and the Jews. Didn't I teach you that?" So, is there a pox on Vox? Has the right-wing grip on Europe been loosened? Has the political tide turned? Has the spell been broken? Can I use any lamer cliches? The answer to all these questions is not quite. The fact that Vox fell a few seats short of beating the socialists doesn't excuse the countries that have embraced the fascist clutches of the right, following in the good steps of Italy, Finland, Greece, and I say Hungary, where race-baiting strongman Viktor Orban continued to curb human rights, marginalize LGBTQ citizens, and kiss ass with the elite by magically turning public funds into private profits. Yay! Hysterically, Orban still lies to portray himself as a liberal friend of the working man. But I would say this next clip shows that no one is buying that story. Now, listen closely. In case you missed it, that was European Commissioner Jean-Claude Juncker welcoming Orban to a conference with the words, "Hello, dictator," and then slipping him upside the head. I'd say, if that's how you light up a room, then your cover is probably blown. And finally, Israel's so far right it's wrong government has just passed a reasonableness standard bill to exert control over its Supreme Court, which is the only institution in Israel that can challenge government rule. Now, basic political rule of thumb, when a bill says it's all about reasonableness, it's not. This bill allows Prime Minister Netanyahu's government more power to appoint any judges it likes, while denying the Supreme Court any power to declare any extremist, militaristic, or just plain dumb government decisions to be unreasonable. And that's just not reasonable. Up next, we say bye-bye birdie to an old friend. When you buy a company like Twitter and its value drops harder than a boulder on Wile E. Coyote, what do you do to stop the bleeding? Do you try to fix the constant outages and technical fuck-ups? Do you try to stop the storm of neo-Nazi and racist content? Don't be ridiculous. If you're Elon Musk, you just changed the logo. Yes, Elon has decided to replace the instantly recognizable bluebird logo of Twitter with an X. That's right, the letter X. X, as in mass exodus of 100 million people from Twitter to Threads. X, as in Twitter's exactly 50% drop in ad revenue over the past 8 months. But who cares about that shit when you have a sexy new logo? So far, there has been no comment from the 24th letter of the alphabet about the change. But we at the European Edge think the following logos would have made much more sense for Twitter. Look at this: bold, symbolic, financial, or this classic update, or this winner that simply says, "I tanked a billion-dollar company. Ask me how." In a separate attempt to win public approval for the new logo, Elon Musk tweeted several messages. "Dear X, you look like the cover art for a dystopian novel about the follies of a stoned egomaniac." And "sizzle in a hizzle." One final note to Mr. Musk: it seems that your rival Meta already holds the copyright to X, so you may find yourself being sued by them, the estate of Malcolm X, or anyone who sends their kisses in capital letters. Fans of House of Cards and Usual Suspects actor Kevin Spacey, me, celebrated after the jury handed down a verdict of not guilty for the actor at the end of his weeks-long sex harassment trial in London. The 4 weeks trial revealed a number of intimate details about Spacey's private life, including that he had bought Dame Judi Dench, which I love, a ping pong table. Now, how could a man who plays ping pong with Queen Victoria possibly be guilty of anything? Last month, Spacey optimistically told Germany's Zeit magazine, "There are people right now who are ready to hire me the moment I am cleared of these charges." Anyone? Any takers? Anyone? Bueller?
Bueller?
Well, no one for now. But here at the European Edge, we will be waiting to see how things progress. Maybe even a new season of House of Cards is possible. Although we might suggest a less powered top ad campaign. Now, what is all the excitement in Johannesburg? Ladies and gentlemen, exciting news is that the who's and who of emerging nations, the developing world, or whatever we're calling it this week, are gearing up for their version of Paris Fashion Week, the 2023 BRICS Summit in Johannesburg, South Africa. For anyone who has absolutely no idea what goes on in the developing world, and let's face it, that's probably most of us, BRICS is an economic body made up of Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. Every year they meet up, and absolutely everyone is going to be there, darling. Everyone except that guy. Which is good news for this guy. That sexy bastard is Cyril Ramaphosa, president of South Africa. He is smiling like this because Vladimir Putin will not be attending the summit. Why? Does he dislike Vladimir Putin? Let's take a look.
Is a way to reach peace, and that's through negotiation and that's through diplomacy. Now, the key sticking point with that is that Ukraine...
Yeah, no, it looks like they get along well. The real reason Ramaphosa is glad his friend Vlad won't be coming is that if his friend Vlad did attend, Cyril would have a problem created by the International Criminal Court. You see, after formally issuing a warrant for his arrest, the ICC would really like to get its hands on Vladimir Putin. But how do you get your hands on the man? Not by inviting him to South Africa, that's for sure. You see, when one of the world's most prolific war criminals, Sudan's Omar al-Bashir, came to Johannesburg for an African Union summit in 2015, the ICC had issued a warrant of arrest against him too. And South Africa took bold, heroic, and decisive action by doing absolutely nothing. So, if history repeated itself and Vladimir Putin did turn up in South Africa and they didn't hand him over to the ICC, people might question whether South Africa is on the right side of history. This is something they've already been doing since Ramaphosa has refused to condemn the invasion of Ukraine. And that's not a joke. That's just a fucking sad fact. And while we're on the topic of Africa, this beautiful continent that I've never been to, it has natural wonders, sunshine, wildlife, and school children singing beautiful rugby chants.
Let's go!
Oh, that gave me goosebumps. If you think we were desperate to work that clip into the show, you're absolutely right. We just wanted a bit of positivity before we talk about some gruel and dark stuff that goes on in Africa. Africa is a continent alive with the power of myth, some traditional, some very new. In these newer myths, the East, such as China and Russia, are the good guys. Yeah. And the West are the bad guys. But the new myths, like these, don't just appear from nowhere. And you don't need to look much further than our old friend Yevgeny Prigozhin and his Wagner group to understand who is busy creating those myths. Over the years, Prigozhin and his merry band of heavily financed men have been getting involved in all sorts of shenanigans in Africa on behalf of the Russian government. And the results? Well, just look at this map that shows the reach of Russian disinformation campaigns on the continent. It's f***ing impressive and actually scary. Or this one that shows all the nations where Russian mercenaries are active today. Both of which lead to this map, which shows in dark blue the number of African countries that abstained from condemning the Russian war in Ukraine during a UN vote. The West has not always been Africa's friend in the past. Like all myth, this one has more than a few grains of truth to it. And because of this, some Africans may be more willing to believe Eastern powers like China and Russia are the good guys, especially since that's exactly what they claim to be. I mean, don't they just look like the guys who are good guys? Cheers, assholes. It's clear that Russia wants from Africa, and it's not too different to what Europe wanted in the past: influence, control, access to resources, and the opportunity to exploit the continent for profit. And maybe to grab a selfie in front of a pyramid. I never did that. What Russia is doing is really just a new form of colonialism, and it's a lot easier than the old colonialism, as you can simply outsource the dirty work to your favorite or formerly favorite extra-national band of mercenaries. Just in case you were confused as to whether Wagner are the good guys or the bad guys, until recently, this was their logo. Yeah. And nothing says we're here to help you like a logo that looks like the cover of a Polish death metal album. But Wagner specializes in real death. And this is what they've done in Africa so far. Mercenary activities, This, of course, is Wagner's signature dish, and they have sent their zany band of criminals as far as places like Libya and Sudan. Why? Mainly because it makes them a lot of money, courtesy of Russia and others who want to advance their interest in the region. And also, it's a rewarding life. Some killing here, a bit of torture there, and then back to the hotel swimming pool for a few cocktails. Well, we all need that life-work balance, don't we? Military intervention. But Wagner does not always work for Russia. The Wagner Group has also conducted military interventions and training in African countries, often in support of authoritarian regimes or rebel factions. If you're a bloodthirsty, opportunistic dictator and you want to stay in power, who are you going to call? Yes, the Wagner. And if you're a bloodthirsty, opportunistic rebel leader who wants his turn on the throne, also Wagner. Does Wagner dabble in Africa regime change for fun? No. Helping prop-up dictators is a literal gold mine. And since we're really desperate to end this segment on an inspirational note, it's time to watch this again. Take it away, boys. Now, we move from informational warfare in Africa to some similar cases here in the new Europe. We're going to discuss OSINT, the active and passive OSINT, with my expert here, which is Jakub Klepek, who's an expert in OSINT and in counter-extremism and extremism. Welcome, Jakub.
You could say so, but thank you for having me here.
Right, so let's start sharply with a question. How old are you?
I'm 25.
Okay, you have plenty of experience already. How come that younger people are so much better with OSINT than, let's say, me, who is almost 40?
Hey, you look pretty young. Like, I would say we're the same age. That's first of all.
Yeah,
Even with the glasses. Look, you actually did some OSINT. I mean, already going on Google, you did some OSINT. I think OSINT before and OSINT now, these are kind of two different fields because we have more tools, or we have different tools, right? Like, there's so many tools, especially with AI right now. So I would say that previous generations were not worse with OSINT or were not doing it right. I think they were doing it right, but with different tools and with different availabilities, with the different stuff that they had before.
Understood. And let's just assume if I'm a 5-year-old kid, or you want to explain that to my mom,
right?
How would you explain OSINT in a very simple, plain words?
Right. I think the simplest way. I mean, that's that's funny because that's probably the most asked questions on ChatGPT, right? Like, explain something to me, like for 2 to 5 years old, right? If you know what ChatGPT is, right?
I do know. I pay $20 a month for that.
Okay. So I think the easiest way to explain OSINT is basically look out for information available publicly. So you don't really do much, which is, let's say, going very deeply into the stuff that is covered, the stuff that is secret. You go and you explore the information that is available online, and you just analyze it.
Is it active OSINT or passive when you do it yourself with
right?
ChatGPT
So that's a great question because I don't get those questions often. It's like, what is the difference? The difference between active and passive. So active, you actually engage with people. Like, let's say we're on Facebook, right?
Okay.
And I want you to, I want to scam you, right? And I'm sending you a link. Like, I'm directly engaging with you.
Okay.
I'm sending you something.
Okay.
You're clicking the link, and then the link has a IP grabber, for example. So then I have your IP, and you think that you're exploring some kind of different site.
Okay.
That is the active OSINT, when we engage. The passive OSINT is when we don't engage at all. You don't even know that I'm there. Let's say I'm watching your Discord chat, or I'm watching your Telegram channel. You don't know I'm there because I didn't join. You have no clue. But I'm having the view of everything.
Discord is what I hear quite a lot, especially with the Pentagon leaks and all of that, and the recent thing.
Rightly so.
So Discord and Telegram are two places where you would do your active or your passive OSINT, is that correct?
I would do my passive OSINT there. I mean, it's a... Also, I cannot reveal all my secrets, right? Because we also know that there's OSINT from the other side, right?
Right.
So people who are...
So there's another guy who just sits over there and he would do the counter thing.
Right, yeah, that's the next guy who comes after me, right? But no, I think I mostly engage in passive OSINT when it comes to Telegram, but when it comes to Discord, I think it's a mix of both. Because also there's this thing called vetting. If you want to get into the server, sometimes they have like the gates that you have to pass by. Like you go in, there's like a lobby, then they ask you to answer some questions if you seem legit, because that's also another question, right? Like how do you build your history, like who you are, right? Like you gotta have your fake profile, fake
You're a spy.
picture and everything. It's look, if I was a spy and I told you, I would be a bad spy.
For me, to not be OSINTed by someone else, to not be analyzed that much, I do have to have all these things called like virtual machine and everything, just have my extra MacBook here. Like, how do I defend myself? How do you defend yourself? Do you have a phone?
I don't have a phone on me right now, because maybe I'm being tracked by... No, I'm kidding, of course.
Okay.
Like, I use my phone, right? I'm not sure what the next topics are going to be, but you mentioned Israel. I remember the kosher phone, right? Like, you just have the old school phones that don't have the GPS and just you can text and call, right? Like those Nokias that you played Snake.
3310,
in
yeah.
good old days, right?
The brick, we call it.
The brick. Yeah. that's a good name for it. But yeah, so I do have a phone. And if someone wants to get your information from the government side, I'm sure they will be able to do so sooner or later. But there are some tools that you can use to protect yourself, like as you mentioned, the virtual machine. You can also use the VPN. Okay. There's a Tor browser, which is not only used for
porn.
Yeah, probably. But it's not only used for like malicious content, right? Like it's a normal web browser that is a little bit more complicated when it comes to IPs and everything. It's a more complicated process. I know that we're short on time, so that's
understood. What do you know about dark web? Like in few words.
I've watched some YouTube videos
about dark web. Okay, understood. Okay, if I'm 10 years old guy who lives in the neighborhood and my bike was annexed by my neighbor who is like 12 years old, I would say, what kind of OSINT techniques should I use so I would dominate the situation?
You should probably try to find out who's from your friends, like who in your friends group is that kind of guy or girl that is going to take your bike. I think that's the first thing you should do.
How would you do that?
You're already doing some OSINT out there, right? Like you're trying to pick the right audience, like you're trying to pick the right group of people that would be capable of doing so. So that's already the first step, right? So then I would probably go and see whether there were some, well, that's another thing, like you could do a preventing thing, which is, for example, giving the AirTag on your bike, so then you can track it on your phone.
Yeah, I have one.
You see? Right, so that's you're an OSINT expert, though. Like, I should ask you questions then, right? But another thing, what I would do, probably check if there's like a monitoring somewhere there, because I don't think the police would really care that much about this bike, to be honest. So doing some monitoring work, or try to see whether there's like cameras out there, and
and have access
maybe
to those cameras.
Ask on Facebook. I don't know.
What are the most extreme organizations that right now are active in the region, and you would want to say, okay, be aware of these?
Right. So
like Wagner Group or something else.
Yes, it's a sensitive and developing topic, because we've got different kinds of groups that are working actively in here, in Poland, and also like in different places. Wagner Group is definitely one of them. I would say groups supported by Russia. And what I mean is that their funds, like the money, is flowing from Russia to those groups. I think this is something to be concerned about.
All right.
I mean, a very interesting stuff that I did recently when it comes to OSINT. I'm sure people are aware about the Quran burning in Sweden or in Denmark, or it wasn't only burning.
Is it Russia?
Look, so there are some hackers, right? I think they have something to do. Their name is somehow connected to Sudan.
Okay.
And so they were saying that they're super, protective when it comes to Islam and values of Islam. Well, it turns out to be that one research shows that the links are actually to Russia. And so, what a surprise.
Yeah,
right?
so they do as usually, divide and conquer.
Divide and conquer.
Let's play a game. Actually, I have two games.
Sure.
I want you to rate from 1 to 10, where 10 is the biggest, 1 is the least amount of utter chaos and extremism that you could say about the country. So I'm going to say Hungary, you would say extremism 10. I would say Turkey, extremism, whatever.
Right.
So let's do
10 is the highest.
10 is the highest, 1 is the least. Let's do the first. Hungary.
Hungary, I would give 7 because I like Cristiano Ronaldo, and I think 7 is a reliable number.
Wonderful.
I think that works.
Turkey, extremism in Turkey.
I love Turkey. I've been there.
Good.
I've worked there.
Okay.
It's a beautiful country with amazing people and amazing food.
But the extremism is?
I'm not an expert when it comes to Turkey, but I would say something around 5-ish.
5-ish, okay. So Erdogan does his job well. What about Putin and Russia?
Oh, I would say 10.
10.
10.
10.
And put 2 more zeros out there.
Okay, and what about Finland?
Oh, Finland, also around 5.
5, all right.
Yes.
And what about Poland? How extreme?
Oh, wow.
Yeah, let's be honest. Your career will not be over after this.
I think Poland would be somewhere around Hungary.
Okay.
I would say 7, 8.
The last one here on the list is Israel.
There's a solid 7, 8 now as well.
Wonderful.
I would say.
Just a quick question on Israel.
Yes.
Before the Netanyahu's overruled thing with the Supreme Court happening, do you think that Israel was a democratic country?
I do believe so.
From 1 to 10, how democratic was Israel before that, in your opinion?
I think that right now we're in that state where there's a democracy crisis in many different countries.
Right.
I also would say that Israel still is a democratic country because of the right of that the people are going on the streets and protesting. I would say before it was like on a democratic scale, 8, 9. I think the only democratic state in the Middle East probably when it comes to this quality of democracy. So I think it's a high number.
So the last game here is this. There are organizations which provide or do not really provide, like let's call it over-national support of the world, like UN and others, OSCE that you're quite familiar with, and plenty of others. Could you do the rating of those organizations and of their usefulness or uselessness, where 1 is useless, 10 is useful in the current world conditions?
Right.
Yeah? Let's do
probably the hardest question I've had recently.
UN.
1.
1. Perfect. It's super useless. OSCE.
Haven't heard much about them when it comes to current security related issues, whatever issues. I would say also around like 2, 3.
2, 3. Red Cross.
I'm not familiar with their work.
Name your organizations.
NATO.
NATO.
I would say they're pretty active.
3.
Let's give it a 7 because of Cristiano Ronaldo.
I agree. Okay. All right, Jakub. Thank you so much for your time. To my viewers, Jakub Klepek was our guest today, and we're going to continue in a moment. Well, that's it for us today. The European Edge will see you next Friday. And until then, please subscribe to our channels. Like us, dislike us, comment, do whatever you want, just do something with our content. Till next week, my name is Andrii Suslenko, and I'm going to be your host next week as well. Bye.